She said she would dance with me if I brought her red roses, exclaimed the young student. But there is not a single red rose in my garden. The nightingale heard him from her nest in the home oak tree. It looked out through the leaves, puzzled. There isn't a single red rose in my garden, he cried, his beautiful eyes welling up with tears. Oh, on what little things does happiness depend. I have read everything the wise men have written. I know all the secrets of philosophy, but my life is miserable because I don't have a red rose. At long last, a true lover, the nightingale exclaimed. Night after night I sang of him, though I didn't know him. Night after night I told his story to the stars, and now I see him. The prince has a ball tomorrow night. My love will be there, murmured the young student. She will dance with me until dawn if I bring her a red rose. If I bring her a red rose, I will hold her in my arms, with her head on my shoulder and her hand clasped in mine. But I don't have a red rose in my garden, so I'll sit alone, and she'll pass me by. She will ignore me, and my heart will break. Here is the true lover, said the nightingale. What I sing about, he suffers from. What is joy to me is pain to him. Love is unquestionably a wonderful thing. It is more valuable than emeralds and more expensive than fine opals. It cannot be purchased with pearls or pomegranates, nor is it available in the markets. It cannot be bought from merchants, nor can it be weighed in the balance for gold. The musicians will sit in their gallery and play on their stringed instruments. My love will dance to the sound of the harp and the violin, said the young student. She'll dance so lightly that her feet won't touch the ground. The courtiers in their gay gowns will swarm around her. But she will not dance with me because I don't have a red rose to give her. He collapsed on the grass and sobbed, burying his face in his hands. Why is he crying? Inquired a small green lizard as he ran past him, tail in the air. Why, indeed? Asked a butterfly fluttering around after a sunbeam. Why, indeed? A daisy asked his neighbor in hushed tones. He's crying for a red rose. The nightingale explained. For a red rose. They exclaimed. How ridiculous. The little lizard, who was a bit of a cynic, burst out laughing. But the nightingale recognized the source of the student's grief. She sat silently in the oak tree, contemplating the mystery of love. She quickly opened her brown wings to take flight and flew into the sky. She sailed across the garden like a shadow, passing through the grove like a shadow. A beautiful rose tree stood in the middle of the grassy area. When she spotted it, she flew over to it and lit upon a spray. Give me a red rose, and I will sing you my sweetest song, she exclaimed. The tree, on the other hand, shook its head. My roses are white, it replied, as white as sea foam and whiter than snow on the mountain. But go to my brother, who grows around the old sundial. Maybe he'll give you what you're looking for. The nightingale then glided over to the rose tree that was encircling the old sundial. Give me a red rose, and I will sing you my sweetest song, she exclaimed. The tree, on the other hand, shook its head. My roses are yellow, it replied. The nightingale then soared over to the rose tree that was growing next to the student's window. The tree, on the other hand, shook its head. My roses are as red as the dove's feet, it replied. They are redder than the great coral fans that sway in the ocean cavern. However, the cold weather has chilled my veins. My buds have been nipped by the frost. My branches have been shattered by the storm. This year, I'm not going to have any roses. The nightingale cried. I only want one red rose, just one red rose. Is there nothing I can do to obtain it? The tree replied. There is a way, but I dare not tell you about it because it is so terrible. I am not afraid, the nightingale pleaded. Tell it to me, the tree instructed. If you want a red rose, you must make it out of music by moonlight and paint it with your own blood. You have to croon to me while pressing your breast against a thorn. You must sing to me all night long. and the thorn must pierce your heart so that your life force flows into mine, becoming one with mine. Death is a high price to pay for a red rose, cried the nightingale, and life is precious to all. It's nice to sit in the green wood and watch the sun in his gold chariot and the moon in her pearl chariot. The scent of hawthorn is sweet. Bluebells that hide in the valley and heather that blows on the hill are both lovely. However, love is superior to life. What is the difference between a bird's heart and a man's heart? So she spread her brown wings and soared into the sky. She moved like a shadow through the garden. She sailed through the grove like a shadow. On the grass where she had left him, the young student was still there. His beautiful eyes were still wet with tears. Be happy, you shall have your red rose, cried the nightingale. By moonlight, I'll construct it out of music. I'm going to stain it with my own heart's blood. All I ask in exchange is that you be a genuine lover. Love is wiser than philosophy, despite her wisdom, and mightier than power, despite his might. His wings are flame-colored, and his body is flame-colored as well. His lips are as sweet as honey, and his breath is as fragrant as frankincense. The student raised his head from the grass and listened. He couldn't understand a word the nightingale said to him. He was only aware of what was written down in books. However, the oak tree understood and was saddened. He had a special affection for the young nightingale who had made her nest in his branches. Sing me one last song, he said quietly. I will be very lonely when you're gone. As a result, the nightingale sang to the oak tree. Her voice sounded like water bubbling out of a silver jar. When she finished her song, the student drew a notebook and a lead pencil from his pocket. She has form, he thought to himself as he walked through the grove. That cannot be denied. But does she have feeling? No, I'm afraid. In fact, she is, like most artists, all style and no substance. She would not give up herself for the sake of others. She only thinks about music, and everyone knows that the arts are self-serving. Still, it must be said that she has some lovely notes in her voice. What a shame they don't mean anything or serve any practical purpose. When the moon shone brightly in the sky, the nightingale flew to the rose tree. She pressed her breast against a thorn. She sang all night with her breast against the thorn. The cold crystal moon lowered her head and listened. She sang all night long. The thorn penetrated her breast deeper and deeper. Her lifeblood was draining from her. She began by singing about the birth of love in the hearts of a boy and a girl. And a magnificent rose bloomed on the topmost spray of the rose tree. Petal after petal, as song after song. Yale was it at first, like the mist that hangs over the river. It was as pale as the morning's feet. It was as silver as the dawn's wings. As a rose's shadow in a silver mirror. As a rose's shadow in a swimming pool. So was the rose that bloomed on the tree's topmost spray. The tree, on the other hand, pleaded with the nightingale to press closer against the thorn. Press closer, little nightingale, or the day will come before the rose is finished, cried the tree. As a result, the nightingale pressed up against the thorn. Her song grew louder and louder. She sang about the birth of passion in a man and a maid's soul. And a delicate flush of pink appeared in the rose's leaves, like the blush on the bridegroom's face when he kisses the bride's lips. However, the thorn had not yet penetrated her heart. As a result, the rose's heart remained white. Only the blood of a nightingale can crimson the heart of a rose. However, the nightingale's voice became fainter. Her tiny wings started to beat. Over her eyes, a film appeared. Her song became fainter and fainter. Something was choking her in her throat. She then gave one final burst of music. It was heard by the white moon. She had forgotten about the dawn and lingered in the sky. It was heard by the red rose. Ecstasy made it tremble all over. It opened its petals to greet the cold morning breeze. Echo carried it to her purple cavern in the hills, waking the sleeping shepherds. It floated through the river's reeds, which carried its message to the sea. Look, look, the rose is finished now, exclaimed the tree, but the nightingale did not respond. With a thorn in her heart, she lay dead in the long grass. The student then opened his window and looked out at noon. What a wonderful stroke of luck. Here is a red rose, he exclaimed. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's so lovely that I'm sure it has a long Latin name. He lowered his head and plucked it. Then he put on his hat and ran up to the professor's house, holding the rose. The professor's daughter was sitting in the doorway, winding blue silk on a reel. Her small dog was curled up at her feet. You said you'd dance with me if I brought you a red rose, the student exclaimed. Here is the reddest rose in all the world. You'll wear it next to your heart tonight. It will tell you how much I love you when we dance together. However, the girl frowned. I am afraid it will not match my gown, she replied. Besides, the Chamberlain's nephew has sent me some genuine jewels. Everyone knows that jewels are far more expensive than flowers. Well, believe me when I say you're very ungrateful, said the student furiously. He threw the rose into the street, where it fell into the gutter and was run over by a cartwheel. Ungrateful, exclaimed the girl. I tell you what, you're extremely rude. After all, who are you? Only a student. I don't think you have silver buckles on your shoes like the Chamberlain's nephew. She rose from her chair and entered the house. What a silly thing love is, the student exclaimed as he walked away. It isn't nearly as useful as logic because it doesn't prove anything. It is always predicting things that will not happen. It leads to people believing things that are not true. In fact, it is completely impractical. Being practical is everything in this day and age. I'm going back to philosophy to study metaphysics. So he went back to his room. He took out a large dusty book and began to read.